So how do you help people to get engaged again? If there's one thing I found in the workplace is that dark periods come to us all. And what that means is that sometimes it's possible to lose your engagement and to lose your inspiration. The good news is we can find our inspiration again. And when we find our inspiration, when we find our engagement, when we find our sense of motivation, all of a sudden our personal success goes up. All of a sudden our professional success goes up. And all of a sudden, as we already mentioned, that absenteeism goes down, that turnover goes down. And so I want to break down how you can help people and maybe even yourself find your inspiration again. Hey, welcome back, everybody. We are talking about creating healthy workplace culture. Hey, you may have figured out that here at Flourishing Workplace, we are pretty passionate about this. And yes, we are, because we are committed to change the world by changing the workplace. And if we can create a workplace where everyone thrives, everyone belongs, and everyone matters, then that truly is a healthy workplace culture. And that is something that every one of us deserve to be a part of. And so we've been talking about these 10 traits of healthy and flourishing workplaces. I'm not going to go and review every one of them. I would encourage you to go back over some of our most recent episodes lately and check those out. But today I want to look at, because we've been looking at 10 traits of people who create a flourishing workplace culture, I want to look at number 7, and that is a motivated and self-directed learner. A motivated and self-directed learner. Now, I want to ask a question. What kind of an impact can motivation actually have on somebody who's in the workplace? In other words, imagine, again, I'll go back to Tom and Sally. You got Tom, he's in cubicle 1, Sally in cubicle 2. Imagine Tom is demotivated. He doesn't have any inspiration. He doesn't have a sense of meaning. He has a hard time getting out of bed, showing up for work on time. Compare his productivity and performance to Sally, who shows up and she is motivated. I'll tell you what, she is like a walking can of Red Bull. She shows up, she's inspired, she's ready to go, she's on fire. I mean, you don't need to be an economist to figure out that Sally is going to produce a heck of a lot more than Tom. The problem is most people in the workplace today are like Tom. As a matter of fact, in the United States, 51% of employees report not being engaged, not being motivated. In Canada, where I'm from, it's even worse. I can promise you that. And the statistics bear that out. But even my own personal experience, you can see that. In other words, 5 out of 10 workers are just not engaged. About 3 out of 10 are actively disengaged. In other words, they're working against the team. And then about 2 out of 10 are engaged and they're motivated. Now, this is tragic because when people are engaged, when they're motivated, absenteeism goes down. So that means they have less sick time, less days away from work, less mental health days. When people are engaged, their productivity goes way up by 17%, and turnover goes down by 24%. So if somebody came to you and said, okay, I've got this recipe, your absenteeism is going to go down, your turnover is going to go down, but your productivity is going to go up, and I'm going to offer this product to you, what would you say? Well, of course, if you're running a business or you're part of a team, you'd be stupid to say anything but sign me up. And so what that thing is that lowers absenteeism, lowers turnover, and boosts productivity is engagement. So how do you help people to get engaged again? If there's one thing I found in the workplace is that dark periods come to us all. And what that means is that sometimes it's possible to lose your engagement and to lose your inspiration. The good news is we can find our inspiration again. And when we find our inspiration, when we find our engagement, when we find our sense of motivation, all of a sudden our personal success goes up. All of a sudden our professional success goes up. And all of a sudden, as we already mentioned, that absenteeism goes down, that turnover goes down. And so I want to break down how you can help people and maybe even yourself find your inspiration again. Because I think it's interesting in the work that we do in workplaces, and as you may or may not know, in Flourishing Workplace, we work with everything from Fortune 500 companies to small and medium-sized businesses to some customers in government to First Nations here in Canada. And, you know, in all of that work, what I've discovered is that it's easy to throw the workplace under the bus. It's easy to throw the boss under the bus and say, well, I'm disengaged because of what you did. And listen, I will agree 100% that the quality of your leadership is the highest factor in your engagement. It matters, right? If you got a bad boss, disrespectful boss who doesn't see you, doesn't hear you, doesn't understand you, doesn't care about you, you will, of course, unplug. But having said that, there's also an obligation on me to keep my own fire going, right? Just like in your marriage. Like imagine you're in a marriage or a long-term relationship and there's two of you there, right? So it takes two partners to dance. It takes two partners to tango. And so sure, it's on them, your partner, like how they treat you, that's on them. And that will impact your engagement. Like if they treat you really nice and sweet and romantic and they're kind, well, that's gonna, you know, keep the fire going. But it's not all on them, because you also have to make the choice to keep your level of engagement high. What are you going to do to bring the romance back into the relationship? And so in the workplace, of course, we're not talking about romance, but what we're talking about is inspiration and engagement. So what are some of the things that we can do? Well, what I want to share with you is what I call the ABCs of finding your inspiration again. There have been dark periods in my own life where I have lost a sense of inspiration. And it's crazy when it happens because you're just cruising along, life is good, feels like you're getting somewhere, and then boom, it's like, you know, who put me in this wind tunnel, right? Where I don't even know where I am. You know, this is a wind tunnel with no lights, and all I'm feeling is this massive wind, and I can't see anything, and it's just horrible, and it's all you can do to survive. And so how do you find your inspiration again? I think the first thing that might help you is you need alignment. Now, alignment to what? Well, you need alignment, number one, with yourself and with your dreams. Did you know that we can get so lost in the work that we forget the why? We can get so lost in what we're doing that we forget the reason that we're doing it. And I always tell people, when you lose your why, you can say goodbye. Now, you can still be there, like physically present, but even though the lights are on, nobody's home. And that's because you've lost your sense of purpose. Now, this happens in relationships. This happens, in business partnerships, and it absolutely happens on the job. You know, people forget the reason why they signed up. They forget the reason why they joined the company. They forget the reason why. You know, again, it's on the employer, the workplace, to keep reminding us of the vision, to keep reminding us of what we're trying to accomplish, to keep reminding us of those things that give us meaning and that help us to feel like what we're doing matters. But it's also on you. It's also on me. It's also on all of us at the level of the workplace. And so in terms of finding your inspiration again, the first thing you got to do is align. You got to align to yourself. You got to align to your dreams. The second thing that you've got to do to find your inspiration again is go back, and this is the ABCs of finding your inspiration again. So B stands for basics. Go back to the basics. If you're like me, I'm going to say this. You tend to overcomplicate things, right? And it's amazing how quickly we do this. You know, sophistication, I think, is the art of keeping things simple. But we have this ability to make even the most simple thing extremely complicated. And so rather than living in the moment, and rather than owning the moment, rather than being fully present in the moment that I'm in, I'm trying to master plan the next 10 years of moments that may or may not come at the expense of owning the moment that I happen to be residing in right now. That's an example of overcomplicating things. I'm not saying we shouldn't do planning. I'm not saying we shouldn't be strategic. I'm not saying we shouldn't have a day timer. I'm not saying we shouldn't use our calendar. But what I am saying is that you can overcomplicate yourself into a place where your soul gets crushed because you're trying to manage and overmanage a future that frankly, almost none of us really has effective control over. Yes, you shape your future, but you don't control it. Those are two different things. And so can I just encourage you, when you think about finding your inspiration again, I mean, number one, make sure that you're aligned with yourself, your passions, your vision, your dreams. But number two, get back to basics. Own the moment. It's enough if you can just own this moment rather than trying to go back over the past and fix all that and get too far into the future. So the ABCs of finding your inspiration again, the third thing is connection. Did you know that finding your inspiration again is about the people that you surround yourself with? Do you know, Jim Rohn famously said that we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And for some of us, that's a problem. You know what I mean? No wonder we're depressed, right? Because we're like, oh my God, the 5 people I spend most of my time with, they're all, maybe not so positive. Now, I hope that's not you. And if it is, I would encourage you to find a new group of 5 because you deserve it. You don't want to end up being pulled down to the lowest common denominator. You want to be around people who are lifting you higher. Why? Because we struggle together, we strive together, we thrive together. And oftentimes we are surrounding ourselves with the people who make us feel comfortable rather than the people who will challenge us. I don't want to surround myself with people who give me another back rub. If I need a back rub, I'll go to the massage therapist. My closest friends are meant to pull me higher. My closest friends are meant to hold me accountable. My closest friends are meant to challenge me and inspire me and give me the motivation and the drive to go higher. So I've got a question for you. Are you leveraging the most you can out of the relationships in your life? Or are you just looking for a bunch of yes men and a bunch of back rubbers who can just make you feel comfortable? Tell you what, in the workplace, this matters. Even there, the workplace is a very social environment often. Even in remote work, it's incredibly social. And so on the job, are you gravitating to people who are simply stroking your ego, or are you gravitating to people who are helping you go to that next level? So if you are lacking engagement, lacking motivation, lacking inspiration today, I've got 3 things that you can do. The A stands for alignment. Get realigned with yourself. The B, go back to basics. Own the moment. The C is get back to a place where you're connected, not just with anybody, but with healthy people who will lift you higher. And so the 7th trait of people who create a thriving and healthy workplace culture is a motivated person, somebody who's inspired, somebody who is fully engaged. And here at Flourishing Workplace, we believe in workplaces where everybody can be fully engaged. Maybe you don't know how to create that kind of a workplace. Can I encourage you to go to flourishingworkplace.com? There you can book a complimentary discovery session. We will sit with you. We will support you to create a detailed roadmap, and we will walk with you to implement this plan. That's flourishingworkplace.com. Please join us in our next episode.